two of the older speakers that we have. One is Professor Shola Olomiobi, who got very ill earlier today, and Maximus Uzoatu, who had malaria and just couldn't travel back to Lagos from the east. So we have to make do with the young Mr. Bola Adebiyi and Professor Emerita Oyeronke Oyewumi. I really appreciate the age before beauty. So you, Emerita, Professor, yeah, come on, please.
Conversations of some sorts.
good ourselves, and it can be something much more permanent. But the first person, we also tend to have a little quiz at the end of a record or a book. So we'll call that question and answer, and at the end, after the questions from the audience, we'll do it over. So, over to you.
addresses dominant issues in the humanities and the social sciences. Perhaps these intellectuals recognize Fela as one of them. Agbaja, a non-academic, but a brother musician admirer of Fela's, or even one of his heirs, as other people have said of him, and I quote, "When he put his mouth for song, philosophy would flow." Fela was definitely engaged with intellectual concerns of the times. I am persuaded that Fela was an intellectual, maybe of sorts, but I will not belabor the issue. What I want to talk about this afternoon are the what and the how of an intellectual that he is, he was. I want to look at his commentary, his pronouncements and statements, his audience, his ideas, and his legacy. But Fela was not an intellectual in the trite sense of the word. In fact, I believe Fela would have felt insulted, apologies to the professors, at being lumped together with what he would consider a pretentious, overly colonized group of Africans who he believed have misquoted. And one quote from Fela that reminds me of that is that he said, "I had no country, just a bunch of Africans running around in suits, trying to be Englishmen." I am sure he would have categorized intellectuals as gentlemen, whom he disdains. And I quote, "I not be gentleman at all," as evidence of my reading, and you can challenge me on that. This was not the kind of club he would have wanted to join. Fela was not the book or the scriber intellectual, but qualifies as a public intellectual, defined as someone who engages deeply with ideas, thinking, questioning, analyzing, and contributing to discussions about society, knowledge, and culture. Importantly, he used his personal experience to critically think about issues and publicize his ideas. We are told that the Abamega was not born a critical thinker. He evolved into it. Olaniyan identifies 3 stages in his evolution: the apolitical Fela, the moralist, and then the full-fledged activist, who became an intellectual and even a revolutionary. It was in the 3rd phase that he is at the most intellectual and revolutionary in his thinking. Significantly, his transformation was tied to his growing political consciousness. Fela came of age at the time of Nigeria's independence, a time of high life, literally, for people of his class background. You must have seen that in the exhibition, where they showed him pictures of his youth. For people of his class background who were jostling for their own place as inheritors of the colonizers. He soon went to the UK to study music. Summing up Professor Laniyan's typology of Fela's phases, literally reached Adiegbor writes, and I quote, "The Afrobeat morals that most Fela admirers know develop out of the highlight journeyman and the apolitical urban pop hustler who favored jazz. In other words, eloquent, My question is, to what did he owe his radicalization? One word often repeated is cyber. His developing political consciousness was tied to his U.S. sojourn. In 1969, he spent 10 months in the U.S. and more specifically to an amazing woman called Sandra Isidore. He learned a lot from her as she mentored him. And I have a little aside here. Unfortunately, the mentorship by Sandra was not enough to dispel his worst ideas about women. He met Sandra in Los Angeles, and in his own words, let me quote Fela here. Sandra gave me the education I wanted to know. She was the one who opened my eyes. I swear, man, she's the one who spoke to me about Africa. For the first time, I heard things I had never heard about Africa. Sandra was my advisor. She talked to me about politics, history. She taught me what she knew. And what she knew was enough to start on. End of quote. As an aside, I find that quote very touching. Because in that quote, Fela displayed a lot of humility, especially towards a woman. Okay? Sandra gave me a copy of the autobiography of Malcolm X, from where he learned many lessons from Malcolm X's life, which left him wanting to be Malcolm. He gained knowledge and he opened his eyes. He learned a lot on the ground of personal experience. Even his on the ground personal experience in America were no less enlightening. His first sighting of New York City left him speechless, and then provoked him into asking insightful, critical questions, but he did difficult questions. So what I'm tracing here is the evolution of Fela as an intellectual and how he emerged as an intellectual. He was awed by U.S. technological prowess and wondered how it is that its social orderliness, technological prowess could exist in the same historical time period as the disorderly, chaotic Lagos. I think the contrast he was drawing is a constant contrast that we still draw between the so-called First World and the Third World. And I imagine that when people first come Japa from Nigeria and
He wrote along this line that Fela was, as much as he was organized in his lyrics, much of his life was unorganized, and someone like that to administer a country as big as Nigeria, someone was pushed president of this country. If he had happened to find himself there, about would have done a terrible job, a very terrible job, because he was. Those who are very difficult, please, let's try to get it. Tejmola sort of bashed Fela in a way, called it brash. And Fela was brash. He could be rude sometimes, but it's Fela, by the way. So he could have done a terrible job if he had more presidency of Nigeria, because much of his life was unorganized. And you see, for example, he married 27 wives. 27 in a day.
Plus, yeah.
Plus
one.
27 wives plus one. And Then later, he pours all of them in a day, in a single day. So that means he's quick to act. He doesn't take his time in making decisions. Could think of something now and go, oh, yeah, this is good. It fits my narrative, what I want to tell my people, sing to the ears of my people, and fix it. And so, recalling could say it's ignorant, and in some other cases, intellectual, and his base is music. You can't take that away from them. And he used it to its maximum potential. Music, we can't take it away from them. And I love how he connects his experiences with his environment such a way that listeners from other countries are able to relate with lyrics. So his encounter with Sandra is a major part. I don't want to say small. It's a major part. And before he met Sandra, then he asked his mother. And I would like to connect the experience with mine also. I started listening to Fela music like 10 years ago, I guess. I'm a young man, please, so I'm not that old. I'm just my early 30s, very early 30s. So just have an idea.
Nothing wrong with being old. I said nothing wrong with being old. Older.
Okay. Alright. So, 10 years ago, I listened to Fela. His lyrics were interesting to me. Dance to song, flow with song, but then I never understood the lyrics at all. I never understood the lyrics. And his name was very popular amongst Nigerian artists, Whiskey and the rest of them. Didn't know much until I went to University of London to study history. And even before that, I've been asking questions about life, this country itself, particularly the world. And it was my encounter with history, go studying beyond classrooms and started to put class lyrics in historical context. Then I thought, especially this democracy, okay, so it wasn't just being funny, it wasn't playing here. He was trying to say democracy is demonic in a certain way, and more like just young evidence, of the thing. And then this Peace of All Nations, interesting song. I connected it to United Nations, to apartheid movement, the anti-apartheid movement happening in South Africa, and the war going on in Iraq, the Iran-Iraq war. Then, so a lot of things happened as far. This is 1987. That's how old I was in 1987. So my study of history helped me to put this in historical context, and I began to see Nigeria for what it really is, not what my parents can believe. My contemporaries are here also. Their parents say, "Oh, it better, oh, it is well, oh, it is this." When my eyes were opened, then I understood why they say it better, it is well, and so on. So there are reasons for why the country is this way, and history gave me answers to that. And so Fela is a public thinker. We can't take that away from him. And I have issues with him. He tries to, just want to indulge a son or a child of a tailor who hadn't put effort to learn Israel mother's handwork, and then goes out and says, yeah, I'm a tailor, but you didn't put yourself to learn how to be a tailor. You're boasting outside that you're a tailor because your mother or your father is a tailor. Oh, it's my father. My father is a tailor, so automatically I'm a tailor. No. No. Because you know a tiny bit of something does not mean you know all about it. So that's one of the weaknesses of Fela, and he was stubborn also, according to the readings that he was stubborn. And well, when it comes to life, you must be stubborn in some cases, to be grounded in your opinions, but then as much as you was grounded in your opinions, they can be wrong. And he was wrong. His opinions on women, of course, some of I also, with our guys, we dance to these songs. Apologies, Mama. We dance to these songs. Mattress, lady, we dance to it.
I have danced to lady before. Mattress, I don't know.
So we dance to it, and yeah, there was no way we can go back to change. If they should play it here now, I'll dance to it. I don't know. So it will be part, as much as we dislike his opinions and his thoughts about women, I think to remain part of his legacy and a testament to his authenticity. It's fascinating to me that he remained real, he remained authentic through and through. And I like him, I appreciate him for that. So yeah, Fela is a public thinker, and he lived his life in the public. He was not isolated as the elites, intellectual circles usually are. Intellectuals, I will call myself one, upcoming. So we tend to isolate ourselves because of I think perhaps what we know, and all these people who have come to understand that whatever we know must be connected to the people in town, because knowledge is useless without relations, without its application in the lives of people around us. And Fela lived it. He lived the life of, he lived the life, yes, public living. Yeah, he lived that life. He lived it. And it was why his audience loved them so much. They were able to connect with it because he sang songs they could relate to. So, for those of us who question contemporary artists, so why can't you sing songs that sing resistance songs, revolutionary songs? So why see the life? Well, they will have their reasons. Surely they have their reasons. And Fela was ready. When he came to that awakening, he was ready to die for it. And that is missing from contemporary artists. For example, Burna Boy, he released an album, Twice as Tall. Very, very, very interesting album. I love that album because most of the songs there spoke to resistance, especially this one, Monsters You Made. So he could have gone on and on and on, maintained the tempo. But then, after that album, I don't know if we noticed something. He changed, he flipped. They started having continuation of his kind of song he started with, let's takasufe, shake. So, and I think we can't force artists to commit to what they have not chosen to. Fela chose to be committed to it when it came to the understanding that my music must impact lives. And it was the reason he changed his surname from Branson to Anikulapo. So, and someone who takes that kind of step, it means he's ready to die for what he believes in. And it's we can't get people like that out there anymore. They are alive, they are among us, but then you can't force people to be what they do not want to be. And and I must say this, Fela inspired me to start this project. Is still a very, very small project, revolutionary art and history. So, like how art and history can be used to fire up revolutionary thinking amongst our people. And I believe in death and resistance. If you want change in your environment, in your country, you must be ready to risk something, sacrifice something. And I learned that in Fela. Fela was ready to die for what he believed in. And defiance and revolution, you can't have great change for greater good without refusing to remain subservient to bad leadership, bad governance. We can't. We know we can't get real change for greater good by just continuing obeying the bad leaders. And revolution will only happen when the people have decided to put a stop to the wronged. So, and it is why I am trying now to connect with a lot more people, because this is about Fela. I don't want to make it about myself. So the intellectual circle tries to isolate. Yeah. So if my contemporaries, some of them are here, please let's not allow academia isolate us from the people. The people must be the center of our thoughts, our thinking, whatever policy we have in mind, research. The people must be at the center of it, because this, me and my family, it will never take us anywhere. It will never take us anywhere. So, in our capacity, no matter how small, let's make impacts, not just with all the people we know, but I understand we tend to be comfortable with the people we know, but let's try to step outside. And it's what I'm working on. It's been difficult, but as possible. So Fela was present in public, and he stood up for what he believed in, and a lot of his songs attest to his quality as a public thinker, as much as his ignorance about other things. For example, women. Some of the songs I'd like to mention is Beast of No Nations. I mentioned it. Beast of No Nations, Ekbekebe na bad society. Beast of No Nations, Ekbekebe. So the next one is Authority Stealing. This one is more or less singing that a politician or a government worker with a pen is badder than a robber, and is badder than armed robber. The ITT, International Chief Army Arrangement, well, we're not in military era. Perhaps we replace army with civil arrangement or civilian arrangement. And teacher, don't teach me nonsense. Mama already mentioned that. And I listened to this one 2 months ago. I put it on repeat for 2 weeks, I guess. I was just playing it. Look and laugh. Look and laugh. Very, very interesting track. And so a lot more music that attests to Fela's intellectualism. But then as much as he was a public thinker, he was so ignorant about women, about complex issues affecting the world, affecting our environment. So it tells us that the more we claim to understand our environment or the world, the less we are ignorant about so many other things. And it is why it is mandatory to increase in knowledge at all times. I think this man said it, I can't recall how he said it word for word. Olufemi Taiwo, I don't know if you know him, Professor Olufemi Taiwo.
Of course.
Okay, he said something about knowledge, that we must not stop seeking knowledge, because the day we will need it, the day we will need it, is it that time we start looking out, when can we get it? So we must seek knowledge at all times, and please let's keep the people, make the people the center of our policies, research, and so on. So Fela is a public thinker. As much as he is a public thinker, he was so ignorant about so many other things. So I will end with this. Fela gave the people in power a lot of headache. And I love the fact that he gave them a lot of headache. And so they must have been thinking that you kill him, he lives forever. You let him alone, he lives forever. You kill him, he lives forever. You let him be, he lives forever. That's a great headache, because if they had killed him earlier, he would have been immortalized. And of course, eventually they left him alone. He was immortalized. Of course, there are issues surrounding his death. I don't want us to go into it. So you kill him, he lives forever. You let him be, he lives forever. Fela lives on.
Thank you very much. I was
Hold on to this. There's another one here.
really rehashed his own points. No point going through everything that he was a short summary of at the end. So I'll quickly take questions from if you have any, and then I'll ask my own question for the please. Questions, please.
Yeah. Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for coming out and sharing your details. I think I just have a question based on how you presented and you really analyze the omissions of the lives of the students. It's using women and gender. So my question is, I think it's in two parts. The first one is a bit direct. Do you think the omission of gender and how it's so is also an enlightenment of it's more of reliable. And the second question is like what would have been it's also like what would have been responsible for that in the sense that is it the environment was going to family hard and sort of trying to we set for maybe Christian ideology that you were in, or socialization that you were in, or was it the project of being an activist and being a guy to be suiting, I just saying that passion, or I'm trying to think things in my head was like, what do you imagine is responsible for this? 2 questions.
What do I
The first one was, do you think it was an enhancement of the way scenario responsibility was of that? And the second was, whether it was the family development of a resulted in this attitude?
towards women?
Yes.
The first part is quite easy. I have 3 children, and they are all grown, and I will not accept responsibility for any of their behavior. Now, they are their own persons. And I also invite you to look at families and siblings. Fela, in certain ways, was different from Beko, from Olikoye and Dolu. So I don't think you can be putting things at the foot of the parents in that way. So that's my attitude. The other question you are asking is, did his family circumstances lead him to his attitude towards women? Is that the question?
Yes.
Just imagine
But that's a question for all of us to answer, that why was he so? In fact, it should have been the opposite, right? Because he saw his mother's activism, not only his mother, the ordinary women of Eba. And in fact, Olufunmilayo also talked about how she was radicalized by the ordinary women of Eba. Because it was only after her involvement with them that she started wearing Yoruba clothes and probably also dropped Francis. She attributed that to the ordinary traders with whom she started working. So we're all at one level a product of circumstances. But you can see that that word circumstances, it has so many sides. Which circumstance led me to steal 2 pence? Which circumstance led me to be a philanthropist? This is a complicated question. So that is how I would answer that.
There's a person at the back.
Good talk, very great. But to follow up on the gentleman's question about Fela's lesson like misogyny. I've not really studied Fela's lyrics through the years, but I'm pretty sure his earlier lyrics were not necessarily misogynistic. Maybe they are more on the playful side, but I believe this is something I don't talk about a lot in Black culture, that his experiences in Lagos were traumatic. We don't talk about the trauma that he went through with his family. And I want to say that maybe those experiences with the army, with the imprisonment, with the injury of his mother, probably was a trauma response that probably changed his lyrics towards misogyny, towards women. I know it's counterintuitive, but I'm trying to make sense of Fela's misogyny, and it doesn't really make any sense to me.
I think that's an excellent.
Please stop there. It doesn't make any sense.
Yes.
Let's not make sense of senselessness.
You're talking about him, so why not we try to make
I I wouldn't.
So I have a comment and I also have a question. Sorry, regarding my voice. My first comment is on actually Sanders' focus as opposed to the full life focus. The fellow Broadway used to remind that it's an American production, and as such, would elevate American story. Nonetheless, we cannot say that Sandra is 100% responsible for Fela's radicalization. It's definitely a system. There's an article written by Stephen Schulek who argued that Fela's musicianship and also his politics should not be traced back to his mother. Not James Brown, not Sandra, not the American illusions that we speak of. Right? So that's my first comment. My second comment on making sense of Fela is, I think that you really puts it very well, saying it's the post-colonial antinomies, which was there. It's in a very accessible way of saying that is two things can coexist. That's basically what antinomies means. It basically says that there are two contradictory conclusions that don't make sense.
Yes.
But those are the conclusions that nonetheless. So I think you can't really make sense of that situation. But if we're to try and make sense of what you're saying, the attack on Fela started, the war in 1977. But the police arrest started in 1974. But Fela had been harboring teenagers before 1974, so how do we really make sense of that? Right? And people say, talk about genders and the misogyny. We need to really nail the nail on the head by saying, this woman that will now the queens joined us from men at the age of 12, 13, 14, perhaps. Right? So, anyways, my question then is that, and this is so prof. How can we separate the man from the music? And the question I was asked where I want to get your opinion how is it even possible to separate the man from the music? That's my question.
Very good questions. One of my limitations is my inability to appreciate his music in toto. Because one of the things I appreciated about reading Olanino was the way in which he analyzed texts, he analyzed lyrics,
Yes.
and then he would talk about the tempo of the music and all that. I can't do that. And so at one level, I don't know how you can separate the music and the man, and why one would want to separate the music and the man. If your question is pointing towards something like, if he's so misogynistic, would I be able to appreciate any of his music? Is that the question? Or maybe what about Fela do I appreciate, considering the things I said about him? I want to believe that there are aspects of him and his music that I can appreciate, no doubt about it. But I wouldn't also do a talk about Fela and not talk about the gender aspect. Let me stop there.
Thank you for this discussion so far, because I have a comment on the relationship with his mother. Because from a psychological perspective, him attributing his awakening to Sandra and not to his mother, I think in and of itself highlights a warped relationship with his mother, or an ability to see or give her the recognition perhaps deserved. And I feel like this might be a manifestation of relationships between mothers and children. Children and mothers has a very domineering and powerful personality. It's easy to then develop that rebelliousness and desire to go against, and also the blindness to everything that that person stood for. So I wonder, I guess I just thought, I wonder your thoughts about that, and if you know more about the ins and outs of the relationship that you had with his mother. Together.
I think it is our presentation as observers and interpreters that is giving the impression that there was this huge gap between him and his mother. Because there were places he gave his mother credit. One of his idols was Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana, and part of what he attributes his knowledge of Nkrumah to was the fact that his mother actually took him to meet Nkrumah.
Yeah.
And that's just one example. So the gap between him and his mother was not that wide. And perhaps the way he talked about Sandra educating him and all that does not nullify the fact that he was educated by his mother too. It's not either or. Because interestingly enough, when Sandra came to the country and they wanted to deport her, they didn't want to give her a visa, he took Sandra to his mother. And it was his mother who hid Sandra for at least a week. The mother liked Sandra, and I think Sandra liked the mother. And what struck me was the fact that Sandra said his mother gave her a book or some books. There was some intellectual thing going on between Sandra and and Fela's mother. But I never saw Fela talk about any particular book that his mother gave him. But he did talk about his mother's work, and that she was a tough woman, and that Kwame Nkrumah was her friend, and she actually took him to see Kwame Nkrumah. If Kwame Nkrumah is your friend, think about what they would have been talking about and how he regarded her. So I think it's just our interpretation. The fact that he said all those things about Sandra does not take away from his mother. I don't think from his perspective.
Yeah.
Hi, thank you so much for this. This has been like really beautiful. I love this kind of discussion. So my question is maybe where you're going with because it's more back to the core topic, which was that was he a public intellectual. I'm curious to hear from both of you what are some of the tenets that you think that had that they need the more public intellectuals today in Nigeria can embody more, or if you think there's not. And I'm also curious to hear if you think that to what extent he influenced like social culture as well, like to what extent he influences. I think one of the biggest and he kind of touched on it, biggest problems with the intellectual class in Nigeria and Africa globally is this idea that there's a lot of talking and maybe not enough doing or enough like impacting. And yeah, he both touched on it in the sense of maybe one of the reasons why he was so powerful is that he was always going to people who wasn't like schooling himself and having his ideas, and she translated that into business. So those two questions should like what tenants you think he had and made it a public intellectual that more people need to embody, and then someone is what extent he actually impacted.
To what extent?
I think you should.
Okay.
I've been talking.
Yes. To what extent? Okay. So, qualities of public intellectual that fella had, that public intellectuals of today in Nigeria do not have. Am I right? Okay, okay. That would be, wow, fearlessness. Fela was fearless. And I think his fearlessness came from his upbringing. We can't disconnect his upbringing from that quality of his. So fearlessness. And he went to the extent of changing his surname Ransom to Anikulapo. And for someone to call himself Anikulapo, which means I have death in my pouch, it meant that he was willing to die for what he believed in. That is what is missing in public intellectuals of today in Nigeria. They come and talk good, nicely, intonations, everything on point, but then that is where you're meant back to the power, taking CD and having a nice time. There's nothing bad about that, but then acting upon, doing something, regarding it, in whatever capacity you find yourself. What are you doing? What are we doing to undo the mess? One person can't do it. And it's so amazing that Fela and his team, yes, I would say Fela and his team, because he never did it alone. He never did it alone. Fela and his team, I would say he drew courage from his upbringing, from his encounter with Cassandra, and from people who was able to meet via his mother. He was fortunate to meet Kwame Nkrumah, and we never can tell if Kwame had told him one or two things, that would have, we never can tell, we were not there. So, and there are people in my life that they've given me courage, propped up some of the courage I have today. I can't remember them. I can remember them, but I can't forget what they told me about. So, same thing to Fela, we can't, we were not there. Hello? Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. So, we were not there when he met Kwame, so there could have been a lot of conversations. He was fearless. So fearlessness is, if I'm to mention some individuals, I think I will mention, am I allowed to mention Dele Faritimi? Do you know him? Dele Faritimi, Mama?
From Facebook.
From Facebook, okay.
That's my extent.
Okay, ma'am. So he's been at the forefront of public discourse in Nigeria, and he risked his life. He was kidnapped. No, he wasn't arrested. He was kidnapped. Not arrested. He was kidnapped, sent to prison, and fortunate for the Nigerian government, they released him, because if they hadn't, who knows what could have happened. So we have David Hundeyi. I believe we all know him. Madam, you know David Hundeyi, because he's one of the people who exhibit that quality, Fela's quality. And there are lots of other people whom we do not know. People on the ground who are willing to risk their lives, but we do not know them because they are not in TV. Does not mean they do not exist. And just like what happened in Burkina Faso, it was unexpected. The man, Traore, was a head of artillery, if I'm correct. He said he was head of artillery's weapons, ammunition, and they chosen people who led the coup. Now, am I proposing coup? Because when I came in, I saw some officers with their badge, perhaps are they DSS or something? Private security, okay. Well, I don't care really. So, thank you, sir. So Traore was an unexpected leader. Nobody expected it, but then those who led the coup picked him to lead them. And what made them do that? They would have been something they saw in him. And I believe some of us would have, well, we are not there, but I believe some of us can attest to the man's integrity. He has it. He has it, and he's willing to risk his life, just like Fela did. So Fela was fearless. Fela spoke truth to power. So we may not have all the courage in the world. Are we ready to speak truth to power? To say the truth could be enough. Could be enough. So many other qualities except the disappointed ones that he had regarding women. So, and you said to what extent there is Fela's impact. Fela's impact is, oh my gosh, is beyond Nigeria today, immeasurable, really, because till new generations come in, his name will ring bells. His name will ring bells, and his influence in music in Nigeria and the world is, oh my gosh, is par excellence. Like his name is just there. It's just there, and it's one of the names you can't erase. You can never erase that name, fella. And his family, oh man, it's well, we will also do some work so that our name too will, because it takes a whole lot for just one person from the family to achieve, reach that height of greatness. And it won't be for him alone. His descendants will enjoy the fruits of his labor. So let me put a pause to it here.
Okay.
Please, I needed to respond to those. Okay. Your questions are well taken, but I do think that the more fundamental question that I see developing from what you asked is, how do we transform? Really? How do we transform the post-colony? How do we transform a country that by the minute it seems as if things are coming to crash on us? We can't be looking for a fella or just a fella. It's about consciousness raising.
Yes.
It's about organizing. Whether you have a shrine or no platform, it's asking ourselves, each and every one of us, what can we do to transform our country? And part of what I was ending with, that we learned from Fela, is that we have to act as collectives. Yeah. Can we start a movement? Can we start a club? When I say can we start a movement, it's almost as if they say, oh, so that will change the country. Let us take things small by small, in bite-sized pieces. This road is not good. Corruption is deep. We're all corrupt. In our little stations, we steal $10, some people steal $10. We need to raise consciousness. And it's about organizing in collectives. Now, whatever we name whatever the particular objective. And I think at one level, we want to I admire Fela and the way he put his life on the line. But I thought some of it was unnecessary. When I say I thought some of it was unnecessary, it was as if Fela was a sitting duck. waiting every minute for the government to be so violent with him. And I'm scratching my head. Was he able to generate a movement? You know? It was as if they came for me all the time. Who was defending him? What was the end game? I'm asking, what was his end game? Because he was like a sitting dog. And then finally, in terms of impact, the reason why I want to talk about Fela's attitude to women and the misogyny is precisely because of that impact. Our children now will be dancing. I'm saying our children. My grandchildren will be dancing to Woman Namatress. Would I say it has no impact? And incidentally, and I'm not making this up, a colleague of mine who has also studied and written about Fela and knew I was coming to this, this place, sent me a text, a WhatsApp text, and said, please remind the celebration audience that men of a certain age, if they are critically self-aware, should admit that they took their first lessons in the pleasures of sexism and male chauvinism from Fela's music, particularly Lady. If you do, kindly share the response with me later. On that
and other fortuitously or certainty or resulted in tell you more than here today. This is what it's to be worn in this little quiz I'm going to run. I formulate the questions.
Gentlemen has a question.
Go on.
Are we done with the question and answer?
Are there any more questions?
Gentlemen has a question. Oh, yeah, you already said yes. Ah.
Thank you very much for the question. You sometimes often hear the problem.
Okay. Yes. Yes.
Because there's a way we conflict issues. People think Sandra was some kind of heroine to go carry the character. If you read God, I want to know, if you read that book, it says, I want to work with my son, I don't need to read. So I think she too went that way. Because all it was sex. So I just want to raise thank you very much for our knowledge of the main issue that I presented, because we put into context something that's more for the in the past. I found out that this class, and we rather that we go to the shrine for our leader. He will start a meeting because we are questioning no other statement. It is the character of our citizens. Don't speak ill of people. So I come back to what you're saying for question. All we're not doing now is question. It's not just in the media, it's everywhere. People are really asking questions like asking. I don't think that people are what we develop from that. So I can really share everywhere. You know, when you talk about the lyrics, it's even minor lyrics. I don't never seen the show. He gets engaged as a little boy. I was always wondering as a little boy, why do you put somebody in cage? Yeah, there's always engaged for ages. And they're naked. Or yellow. Yes, yellow. Almost. But the character was always, you don't have to wear something like that. She never wore it. You know what? See, one fellow will go to and lie. I mean, those were the pictures that we saw. But let me explain to you what you just said about question. If But the content is even worse. I want to tell people, please, nobody should tell you to like things. No. It's something in our society that makes this kid to sing. You know those who value those who look down to them, they are always worried. Because I want to see those concerts. When you see many people with when you see the way you see them, and those are the female musicians, rather than that, women seem to have sex. But I want to always see me or who's but then some of the lyrics be more recent. But what are the improvements for those songs? We gave it two letters, lyric songs, we changed me or even my ballad and turned it to a laughing way. You know, those are times that I want to see now. So what's going on? I'm doing it to you. Although I mean, such a complete question. Thank you.
Subsequent thoughts. I feel as the surgery and relationship with women are actually 3 talks towards the end of the year.
3 or what? I said, 3 talks in general.
3 talks. There's one on federal and feminism, there's one on federal and females, and there's specifically a talk about federal and the women in this family. So, right quickly, I'll ask one question, and that's all is the question is, what was Fela's last album that was released in his lifetime?
He's not part of it. No, you shouldn't be a part of it. No, isn't it that this is what you're studying?
Yes.
And he already has the book.
Does anyone else know the answer? Or does anyone
Oh, okay.
response?
Oh,
I'll see you all, I'm pretty sure you all have the
I don't have the copy. No, I don't have the copy.
Okay.
So you can present it to me. I don't have a copy. You can present it to me. No? Yay! Thank you. Why? What is rings there? Or what were you going to do with it? Oh, okay. Anyway, I've colonized yours, so. So the last fans don't like me talking like that about him.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
You don't want me to say the things I said.
No. I'm open to it.
Hey, I'm not making it up. I'm not.
True, ma'am.
Nigeria has even gone to another level with the misogyny.
Yes. The lyrics of songs now.
Besides the lyrics, he's pronounced the women can never be equal. He was beating the women.
Thank you all for coming.
Oh, Bono.
I'd like to acknowledge the support of the Global Society, the Federation of the Community, and everybody else who helps with this.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, how are you? Oh, the mic.